Today my informative speech is going to be over NASA. The National Aeronautics and Space Administration has been around for almost 60 years now. They were founded on July 29th, 1958. NASA has been leading the world in aerospace technologies, and NASA is basically the reason why we know so much about space now. From the journey to the moon to our preparation to continue to explore space, NASA is leading the world in aerospace technologies. I've wanted to work for NASA ever since I was little, and NASA is the reason why I chose my career path now. First, in my speech, I will discuss NASA itself, the foundation of it, and second, I will discuss the missions that we've took, the satellites, the Hubble's telescope, and finally, I will discuss how we're moving forward in our technologies and constantly advancing in them. From the first calculations to putting humans into space, NASA has remained one of the most famous organizations around. NASA was created from NACA, which was the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics. At this time, 1957, there was a race for space going on, and Russia had shocked the world by launching its first satellite into space, and the satellite was called Sputnik. And founding NASA, it was a sign that the United States was committed to the space race, and we wanted to be first. The Soviet Union's launch kind of embarrassed the United States. We prided ourselves on being the technologically advanced country. And our first strike back was a satellite which exploded and failed. It was on December 1957. And in order to be back on the top, the Eisenhower administration made sure that all math and sciences were performed in school. We focused on math and science-based activities throughout school, so we would move forward. And towards the end of 1957, the Earth launched Explorer 1, and it orbited around the Earth. It completed its orbit around the Earth, so that was our first step into the space race. In June of 1958, Congress passed legislation establishing that NASA as the lead of the United States space program. Now that I've discussed the foundation of NASA itself, I will discuss the missions that we have took and how we got there. Under the JFK administration in 1961, they set a goal to put man on the moon in the next 10 years. So it'd be 1961 and then 1971. Between that time frame is when they wanted to put man on the moon. July 1969, we did it. We put man on the moon. It was July 16th, 1969, the Apollo 11 astronauts Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins set foot in a 360-foot rocket to board space. At 9:32 a.m., Apollo 11 cleared the tower, and 12 minutes later, the crew was in orbit. According to Dunbar, at 10:56 p.m., Armstrong set the first steps on the moon, changing mankind for the better. Over time, NASA had sent satellites into space. The first two were Pioneer 10 and 11. Pioneer launched in 1972 and 1973. The Pioneers studied the planets, and they focused on the gas giants mostly, but they specifically studied Jupiter and Saturn in depth. Shortly after the Pioneers, Voyager 1 and 2 were launched. They went more into depth of the gas giants and Jupiter, like specifically, and they found that Jupiter actually has rings, which many people don't really know about, but it has rings kind of like Saturn and Uranus. And they also discovered that on one of Jupiter's moons, Io, that moon actually has volcanic activity, which is like something that we normally don't see on moons. The Voyagers also made a flyby of Uranus. Voyager 2 is the farthest any man-made object has been. Like, it's the farthest anything has ever been from Earth. The Hubble is the most known spacecraft that we know about because it's the Hubble telescope, and we use it to like take pictures of space all around, and it's basically changed like everything that we know about space. Now that we learned about NASA's history of the missions, we will discuss the future of NASA's technologies. Technology is constantly changing and advancing, and NASA is one of the world leaders on changing that technology and making it better. NASA now has laid out roadmaps of where they want to be in the next 20 years, which is really exciting because they have a lot of cool stuff that they want to get done in that time frame, and it's just cool to read about the stuff. You should read it if you're interested, but I'm only going to name a couple of them. So, according to NASA, they are looking to have a way to store power, sort of almost like a generator, but not quite. Like, they're looking to store power for like spacecrafts and everything, so they can like conserve power, but also store it so they can use it to go farther away, and so they won't run out of fuel or power like in the middle of it and not be able to get back. This will improve the lengths and trips of science explorations into space. They're also looking for a way to better the health of humans in space. Like, outside of Earth's atmosphere, it's like the Earth's atmosphere protects us from radiation. So outside of it, we get like almost like radiation poisoning. It's not severe, but it's like it could cause damage, and it does. So they're looking for a way to better that. We want to prevent that effect on the human body while in space, so we can learn more about space, so we don't have troubles for that. NASA is also looking to have life support systems on the ISS, which is the International Space Station, if you don't know that. Another thing that NASA is looking to do is add thermal imaging and the thermal management to all spacecrafts and space stations now. Why I want to do that is because we want to like keep a constant temperature in space, because our bodies, we can't go under a certain, and we can't go over. Like, our max is probably 130 degrees Fahrenheit, and past that, like, we die. So that's why when we get fevers, it's important to like take care of them. So we really want to like learn about thermal management and for the space stations, because if we don't, like, we won't know until it's too late, and it's kind of hard to like get back, and it's hard. We just want to make sure like the space stations and spacecrafts maintain a certain temperature. So in conclusion, I have discussed NASA itself, the trips that we have made, the missions that we've took from landing on the moon to putting satellites into space to get information back here, and the technology and the advances we're making so we can further understand space and what we're going to do with it. So yeah, from the moon landing to making technological advances, NASA's been around for a long time, and hopefully will always be around, because I like space, so I hope you guys like space too and want to learn more about it just like I do, because Earth is getting overpopulated, so it'd be nice to ship some people off to Mars soon.